The world is full of creatures that impress us with their dimensions. Everyone knows many of them. Have you heard about the moth size of an adult man's fist? About the biggest cat among those living on Earth? Or a giant catfish? It's worth looking at them. In this episode, I'll show you giant animals that broke all records. Cassius. This is the name of the large saltwater crocodile that we're going to talk about. No, Cassius is not just large, it's one of the largest, and also one of the oldest crocodiles in the world. Since 2011, Cassius has held the title of the Guinness Book of Records as the world's largest captive crocodile. No one knows Cassius's exact age, but people speculate that he's over 110 years old. For such a long time, he managed to grow to an unthinkable 18 feet, or rather, that was the length Cassius had in 2011 when he made it into the Book of Records. Today, he may well be larger. It's just that people are afraid to get in touch with him and take measurements. According to zoo workers who look after the animal at Australia's Crocodile Park, there are two factors that indicate Cassius may actually be much larger than the length recorded in the Guinness Book of Records. Firstly, such crocodiles grow throughout their lives. Secondly, when Cassius was found, he was fighting with other males and lost part of his tail and snout during the battle. Would you like to see this giant in person? Write in the comments. Malaysian python. Pythons are quite large snakes, which, on average, have a length of 5 feet to 16 feet. However, I'm not afraid of the word. A real monster found in Malaysia has broken records and become a source of unforgettable sensations for people. The huge reptile was found by workers at a construction site near the popular tourist island of Penang. They noticed the snake lurking near a tree and immediately called the special service. At that moment, all the workers realized that with this giant, they could not cope without help. The professionals who arrived at the site worked for another 30 minutes to catch the snake and finally achieved what they wanted. The Malaysian python, which was 26 feet long and weighed about 550 pounds, was no longer a threat to civilians. What's even more amazing in this story is that the snake in front of the workers was the longest snake ever recorded, except that the record was never awarded to her. As authorities later reported, the snake died 3 days after being caught, after laying an egg the day before. What caused its death is not fully known. But come on, don't be upset. There are still chances that the same large snake will grow from her egg, which will take the first place in size. Hercules. Who do you imagine when you hear about the largest cat? No, I'm not talking about pet cats. I mean lions, tigers, and other wild cats. But okay, you don't have to guess because the largest cat is Hercules, a hybrid of a lion and a tiger. This feline was born in 2002 at the Florida Institute for Endangered and Rare Species. According to the workers of the center, the liger has good health and is expected to live for a long time. Hercules' muzzle resembles his lion father, and his body has noticeable stripes like his tiger mother. The record-breaking cat has no mane and also inherited from his mother an incredibly high speed of movement and the ability to swim. In 2006, Hercules was entered into the Book of Records as the largest representative of felines living on Earth. Well, to maintain his shape, he eats more than 20 pounds of meat every day. His diet includes horse meat, beef, and poultry. All this has led to the fact that the cat has grown to a length of 12 feet and a weight of more than 900 pounds. And this is despite the fact that Hercules is an agile and healthy creature that does not suffer from excess weight. Giant shark. The fact that there are huge sharks in the world is known to everyone. However, almost always a big shark preys exclusively on plankton. That's just the way Mother Nature decides. Nevertheless, there are other giant sharks in nature which you wouldn't wish even your worst enemy to meet. One of them was caught off Phillip Island in 1970. The shark was 20 feet long and weighed 5,083 pounds. Although this is considered an absolute record, many doubt this event. Nothing like this had ever happened before. They say that this predator could have eaten a seal or someone else right before its capture, except no one's ever found any remnants in its stomach. It was, as many of you have already guessed, a great white shark. And 10 fishermen worked simultaneously to get it on board. For understanding, Other representatives of this species have a length of no more than 16 feet and weighs a maximum of about a ton. It's even frightening to imagine what this enormous creature was capable of with his sharp teeth and murderous jaws. Moose on the road.
Look at this big fella.
When I first saw this video, I thought the moose on the road was a pure monument. They're usually made very large. But when the driver drove a little further and I realized that the moose was moving,
Hey there, bud.
I was speechless. Just imagine how much power that monster has. I mean, he could flip a car over. Besides, moose themselves are quite aggressive creatures that do not tolerate bad attitude. However, moose in Alaska are quite a common phenomenon. Animals freely walk around the state. Often these horned creatures come to visit local residents. Powerful animals cause delight and admiration. But still, this giant, caught in the camera lens, causes horror along with fear. Little John. This is the name of our next hero, about whom we're going to talk. It's a rooster of the breed Brahma, to which we'll return a little later. But for now, let's have a look at the feathered one. John is one of the largest roosters in the world. The little guy stood out from childhood and almost immediately switched to a special diet. His owner, Jeremy Goldsmith, saw a diamond in the bird. Jeremy took him to a free field where he was able to walk regularly and freely and bought the best and most nourishing feed. Although, as Goldsmith said in an interview, there are times when his friend's diet upsets, such as when children come to visit. They start feeding the rooster popcorn and other nasty things, which surprisingly he likes. Little John has been under the care of Jeremy Goldsmith since he hatched out of the egg, and it's thanks to him that he's reached a height of more than 26 inches. Oh yes, I almost forgot. In fact, the chickens of this breed, the Brahma, are large already by themselves from birth. They're adapted even to cool climates and do not require much walking. Not everything is clear where this breed came from, but in general, people believe that Brahmas originated from Asia and were selected in the United States. Moth. What? What does it have to do with this? Yes, I used to think so too, until I stumbled upon this fascinating footage. People from Australia have filmed a giant moth in the forest. The case was in Camp Mountain, east of Brisbane. The insect was crawling along the trunk of a tree. It was impossible to miss. Of course, as soon as this photo hit the web, it attracted the attention of many scientists. They made joint efforts to guess who it was there. It was not possible to give a definite answer. However, people assumed that the tourists had filmed a giant moth. This butterfly is considered one of the heaviest in the world. Females weigh up to 1.1 ounces. They can grow up to 6 inches in length, and their wingspan is somewhere around 10 inches. River monster. The following story took place in Italy's Po River, the country's largest river in terms of catchment area and length. There, in 2015, brothers Dino and Dario Ferrari forever wrote their name into fishing history, at least locally. They managed to pull a giant catfish weighing over 286 pounds and 8.9 feet onto land in minutes. Dino and Dario released the catfish after taking a photo against the backdrop of the fearsome fish to prove their story, much to the delight of internet users. According to the fishermen, they calculated that the giant was about 30 years old, and representatives of his species can live up to 50 years. Well, how do you like such an unusual catch? Would you like to be in the place of the brothers? Write in the comments. And now I propose to look at the largest representatives of animals in principle. I'm sure they'll surprise you no less, so watch the video to the end. It'll be interesting. Giant stick insect. This insect is on the verge of extinction, but here you shouldn't be sad. On the contrary, you have to dance with joy. The fact is that not so long ago it was considered died out. For 80 years, the animal was discovered in the middle of the 19th century, and it immediately gained fame as the heaviest stick insect of the planet. Because of its amazing size, it had no natural enemies. However, this did not play in favor of its survival. It was the exact opposite. The walking leaves lost their wings and almost became extinct because of it. Rats settled in its native territory by chance and, as scientists believed, completely exterminated the species. But the little guy was not so simple. These bugs moved to an island a couple dozen miles from there. Their bodies were found by local climbers, but no special attention was paid to them. Nevertheless, rumors of mysterious arthropods stirred the imagination of scientists. They set out to study and finally found those who were thought to be extinct for about 80 years. It turned out that the insects fed on plants all this time and developed quite successfully. Several individuals were taken for breeding in Melbourne and Sydney. One of the couples died soon after that, but the second pair, symbolically named Adam and Eve, had offspring, albeit few. These stick insects were supplied with their favorite tea tree leaves, and now their numbers are gradually increasing. Giant forest hog. Did you know that big hogs are far from rare or accidental, especially when it comes to big woodland species? These piglets are considered the largest representatives of the family, whose size reaches 83 inches, with a height of 43 inches and a weight of 186 pounds. This giant monster lives in Africa. Its habitat stretches from Guinea to Tanzania, and here it's important to note at once that all those records in terms of size refer only to males. Females are about half the size in all respects. The pig is omnivorous, although it does have preferences, especially in vegetation. At the same time, males regularly have to stand up for the defense of the family. A family of about 20 individuals can be attacked by outsiders who want to take control, and any such attack is extremely dangerous. If you lose vigilance for a minute, the stranger will be quick to hit the skull of the male and smash it. The things you have to do to become the new master of the herd. But such intolerance does not apply only to ideological rivals. Any predator from small to large will get it if they dare to step on the territory, which is ruled by the main male. And it's better that no one even knows how angry and aggressive he can be. Even lions try to stay away from the big pig. Australia is an amazing place. It's home to many large creatures, but what about giant worms? Are you serious? Our next guest is called the giant earthworm. I'm going to go ahead and say that yes, it lives exclusively in Australia. Overall, this creature is an unremarkable worm. He has no deadly poison, no creepy jaws, no bloodthirsty habits. But there's one thing that makes it stand out, and that's its size. Of course, what else besides them can scare other local fauna? This abnormal animal grows from 31 inches to 10 feet in length, and all because there are no predators in its habitat that would like to eat it. So the worm develops to its fullest potential. Now add to that a favorable warm climate, humidity, plenty of food, and you'll get a worm the size of a hose. And if any of you are already ordering tickets to Australia, hoping that there you can catch a gorgeous bait, bear in mind that this worm is considered endangered, and it's not widespread. Otherwise, it would have burrowed all over the continent. It hides exclusively in the Bass River region. By the way, there the giant is so strongly revered that they even organize various festivals in his honor. And in general, even if you put aside its amazing size, the worm itself is quite fragile. If you just carelessly touch it with your finger in any way, it will soon be sent to glory. There is a theory that exactly for the same reason the worm builds its burrows only at a depth of about 6.5 feet. By the way, here is a fun fact on this topic. The presence of worms can be determined by the characteristic noise that occurs when they return to their dwellings. You don't have to be a giant to be considered strong. Later, I'll show you the strongest animals on the planet. Eagle. Let's start with the less strong ones, and first up is the eagle. Although it's less strong only in today's episode, and in many respects this is my opinion, objectively it's the strongest of the flying birds. Eagles are very large, have incredible eyesight, and developed instincts that allow them to soar beautifully through the air and hunt effectively. I would call the South American harpy eagle the strongest eagle. Firstly, it's the largest eagle on the planet. Some individuals weigh 20 pounds, which is a lot for a flying bird. Secondly, harpy eagles specialize in very large prey, which are usually larger than themselves. These are usually sloths and monkeys. And harpy eagles do not just kill them on the ground and eat them there. They fly up to the prey, grab it with their powerful talons, and fly with it through the air to their nest. The prey can do nothing about this grip. Even if it chose to slip away so that it could crash to the ground and not become the harpy eagle's dinner, it wouldn't be able to do so. The harpy eagle's grip is dead in every sense. Zebra. If the eagle still looks logical in such an episode, what's the zebra doing here, you may ask me? After all, this is a herbivorous animal. In fact, an ordinary wild horse with stripes. What's special about it? Actually, zebras are not as simple as they seem and are extremely interesting. But today, I'd like to say just one thing. They are the best in kicking technique among animals. More specifically, the zebra has the strongest leg kick in the world. It's about 3,000 pounds. This is much stronger than the kick of even the best MMA fighter. And given the zebra's hard hooves, such a kick is completely fatal. Or at least it can end up with a brutal knockout. Many animals, including lions, have already known this. When predators hunt zebras, these striped taekwondo fighters kick them with all their might. Not even a strong kick can knock out a lion, or at least knock it down. And if it's very strong, the zebra can break the huge cat's skull. Atlantic Goliath grouper. This fish looks like it's always in a bad mood and ready to eat someone. That's not far from the truth. The Atlantic Goliath grouper, also known as the Jewfish, is a very large fish. It can reach 8.2 feet in length and weigh up to 1,000 pounds. Of course, average individuals are smaller, but this doesn't prevent them even from attacking sharks. Yeah, the Atlantic Goliath grouper is one of those fish that does this. What's more, Atlantic Goliath groupers very often feed specifically on sharks. Not great white sharks or tiger sharks, of course, but that's just because of their size. The Atlantic Goliath grouper has a lot of strength, and if it were several times bigger, it would definitely be a nightmare for great white sharks. We shouldn't relax either. Atlantic Goliath groupers do not like divers and often pounce on them. There's nothing particularly good in this, because nobody would like to face the aggression of this powerful predator. Anaconda. When you look at the footage featuring anacondas, you begin to doubt that this snake is real. I mean, a slithering creature weighing over 220 pounds with a length of up to 16, 20, and according to some reports, 33 feet? It's too much. But nature knows how to surprise us. Officially, the anaconda is not the longest snake. The reticulated python is considered to be one. But in terms of weight, it is the undisputed leader. Anacondas are very massive and strong, and being non-venomous animals, they use their body to neutralize their prey. The squeezing force of the anaconda is 227 psi. Imagine that you put a kettlebell on your fingernail. This is approximately how the anaconda squeezes its prey. Only it's not just one fingernail that suffers, it's the whole body. With the help of its deadly rings, the anaconda can easily break even a crocodile. If you remember how strong crocodiles themselves are and what strong armor they have, then you begin to fear the anaconda even more. But these snakes don't attack humans. Almost. It can only happen if one pisses off an anaconda a lot or tries to put them on like a necklace. So far, all the animals I've shown you have been strong in one thing. The anaconda is strong in squeezing, the Atlantic Goliath grouper is strong in attacking sharks, the eagle is strong in lifting heavy prey, and the zebra is strong in kicking. The next beast, however, is good at several aspects at once, and that is the hippo. A real menace of Africa and a terror in the flesh. And that's how you can call this giant. By the way, despite the fact that hippos are very large, and from the looks of it, they're very thick, they're surprisingly fast. In the water, hippos swim at a speed of 4 to 8 miles per hour, and on land, it accelerates to 19 miles per hour. To run away from it, you need to be a top athlete, otherwise there's no chance. When the hippo catches up with its prey, it begins to use its teeth. Hippos are facultative predators, that is, they eat grass, but on occasion they can eat meat. But it bites not only to eat, but also to finish the enemy off. That's what these territorial creatures do to intruders.
Okay,
when you
Mom.
watch how hippos crush watermelons and pumpkins with just one bite, you understand it's definitely worth staying away from these chubby creatures. By the way, they don't even always need teeth. An average hippo weighs 1.5 to 2 tons, which makes it a tank in the animal world. It can just run and hit a car and leave a big dent in it. or it can just lightly hit a boat from underwater and almost flip it over. It's creepy to even imagine what it would do to a human in such a case. Grizzly. What bear is stronger, the grizzly bear or the polar bear? This is an eternal debate, and in fact it's hard to say for sure. But scientists have conducted a study and found out that grizzly bears are stronger than their northern relatives on a number of factors. These bears are strong in general, so much so that they say that the grizzly's bite force is enough to bite a bowling ball in half. Personally, I believe it, given the size and fangs of the predator. As for the size, grizzly bears can grow up to 10 feet in height and weigh 1,100 pounds. Although in nature, such individuals are not so common, but all individuals have very long and sharp claws, which are up to 6 inches long. This is more than enough to teach an offender a lesson or get the prey. And if it runs away, it has little chance to escape. The grizzly is also good in running. The bear accelerates up to the limit of 35 miles per hour on a flat surface. So it can catch up with almost any animal, let alone humans. We're very slow for the grizzly. Saltwater crocodile. The most dangerous crocodile, the largest representative of the crocodile order, as well as the largest land predator on the planet. That's how many titles it has. I think I could have finished here because such a beast simply cannot help but be one of the strongest in the world, but let's take a look at it in greater detail. The saltwater crocodile, which lives in Southeast Asia and Australia, is a real threat to everyone. The reptile grows up to 23 feet in length and weighing up to 2 tons. As you understand, such a monster simply cannot have enemies, as it itself can choose any target for lunch. This crocodile is characterized by incredible aggression, tenacity, persistence, and desire to go to the end. But its main weapon is its teeth and jaws. The saltwater crocodile is the holder of another title, the most powerful bite in the world, at least among land animals. A large crocodile of this species bites with a force of more than 34,000 newtons. For comparison, the great white shark has this value of 16,000 less, and a human bites about 22 times weaker. The saltwater crocodile is so strong that it doesn't chew bones but grinds them, turning them literally into powder. I'm not even talking about meat and tissue. Although the saltwater crocodile is very, very strong, there is still one animal it wouldn't want to mess with. It's an animal that very few animals and people want to mess with. I'm talking about the elephant. If we're talking about pure strength and not any specific values, it has no equals on land. After all, if you're the largest land creature and weigh 5 to 6 tons, you simply can't be weak. Only rarely do some predators attack elephants, but more out of desperation. No predator in their right mind would lunge at such a huge creature. The elephant is very muscular. In its trunk alone, there are 100,000 muscles, about 100 times more than in the entire human body. With its trunk, the elephant can lift heavy logs or hold a human without much effort. If it uses the whole body, it can do real miracles. For example, it can work on the farm, helping farmers to lift what they would never have lifted themselves. In many Asian farms, the elephant is an indispensable assistant. But elephants can not only help but also spoil. Their strength is enough to drop and uproot even a large tree in a few seconds. And if the elephant is furious, then it'll attack everything. Elephants often smash and flip cars, doing it with ease. And sometimes they can even demolish an entire settlement, destroying many houses. This has happened before. Blue whale. And here's the underwater leader in terms of size, and the leader among all animals in general. The blue whale is the largest animal in history, and it impresses with many things, including its strength. It's difficult to assess its strength because the blue whale doesn't uproot trees and doesn't cause chaos in villages. But scientists have reason to believe that whales are among the most powerful creatures on the planet. Firstly, the ability of the blue whale to suck in several tons of water and krill at once is impressive. And secondly, the power generated by the whale's body is 600 horsepower. This is comparable to many powerful sports cars, which means that it's simply impossible to call the blue whale a weak creature. But it's no champion either. If we play fair and match an animal's strength to its size, all the creatures I've told you about today lose to one animal. Interestingly enough, it's much smaller than them. There it is! Did everyone recognize the dung beetle? It's this seemingly unremarkable beetle which always pushes a dung ball that's considered the strongest among all animals. Simple calculations are enough to understand it. The beetle itself weighs only a couple of grams, while the ball it rolls weighs 50 grams. That is 25 times heavier than it is. But this isn't even close to the maximum that the dung beetle can demonstrate. Scientists conducted an experiment with a thread that was glued to the elytra of the beetle and thrown over a block. A container was attached to the opposite end of the thread, where the scientists added water drop by drop. As a result, the scientists found out that the dung beetle is able to hold a load, the mass of which is equivalent to 1,141 of its body weight. Is a whale or an elephant capable of such a thing? Of course not. And now imagine, you and your family are traveling in your car, enjoying the views when suddenly your way is blocked by one of these strong animals. Get ready further in this episode. You'll see Car versus Animals compilation. Giraffes. Giraffes are harmless enough, but at the same time extremely curious creatures. See for yourself how this family went out by car on safari, and this giant looked into their cabin. It didn't want to hurt anyone, but was just looking for something to eat. The zebra decided to do the same thing and peeked through another window. Maybe it was Marty and Melman from Madagascar, but such peeks don't always end well. Here, for instance, the giraffe peeked into the cabin too. The girl should have sat still and done nothing, but she closed the window for some reason. The giraffe got uncomfortable, broke free, and shattered the glass. Fortunately, it only ended up with a broken glass. Neither the giraffe nor the girl cut themselves. In general, giraffes can do other damage to a car. That's what happened to this group of tourists on safari. The giraffe was running beside them and at some point cut in front of the off-roader to block the road. The result was a small dent and a scratch. And that's lucky because giraffes usually weigh more than a ton, so even a small collision can severely damage the car. But the rhino does it much better. It's not for nothing that it's often compared to a living tank. It weighs more than 2 tons, sharp horn, power, and eternally bad mood make it a real killer. In addition, rhinos have poor eyesight, so they often mistake cars for enemies and attack them. For example, here a rhino encountered a driver in its way. It was clearly guarding the area and didn't want anyone to pass through here. The beast makes a warning lunge, raising dust, but the driver doesn't leave. The rhino backs away as if to let him pass, but in fact prepares to attack. As soon as the car starts moving, the rhino rams it and scares the driver. And this giant did not like a white SUV with tourists, so it ran and with all its might flew into the side. Even the multi-ton SUV staggered from such a blow. The giant jabbed the car with its horn one more time, realizing that it posed no danger, and calmed down. But it's not always like this. In Germany, they filmed eerie footage of a rhino overturning the car. See for yourself how dashingly it handles it. It rolls it around like a toy. But the creepiest thing was that a safari park employee was in the car at the time. It seemed that after such flips, she was left with at least a dozen broken bones. But surprisingly, she got away with only a few bruises. But the car apparently had to be taken to a salvage yard. And here we can see a real duel between a rhino and a car. Apparently it's some kind of performance because there are spectators gathered behind the fence. This rhino is much calmer than its congener from the previous video. It hit the pickup truck only once, but even that was enough to lift the heavy car. Bull. Speaking of shows, the next animal from this episode, a bull, wreaked havoc during a show. In the midst of the Spanish festival, it ran out into the street and attacked a car in which a family with children was sitting. Hooking the front of the car with its horns, the enraged animal tried to overturn it. Fortunately, the giant horned creature failed to do so and the family was okay. Nevertheless, the animal damaged the hood and the fender and hustled the engine, from which the liquid spurted out. And this is the footage from India, where the bull is dealing with a small white car. This giant is clearly stronger than its Spanish hot-blooded congener. It picked up the car with its horns and held it for several seconds. However, it couldn't turn it upside down either. And again, we're in India. It Turns out that bulls don't like not only cars but also motorcycles. A guy gets on his bike, is about to ride out, when suddenly he sees two bulls rushing towards him. They literally swept the bike and the guy off and then ran away. Luckily, the biker was lucky. He got away with a couple of bruises. It may seem that these bulls were always provoked by something, and that may be true. But the next video shows that bulls don't need provocation. If they don't like a car, they'll attack it. This car was just standing quietly with no driver inside, but the bull attacked it anyway, causing damage to the doors. Only after a couple of minutes, the bull was chased away. Someone threw a jug at it, and the animal calmed down. Buffalo. Another bulls are next in line. As a rule, buffaloes are more dangerous than ordinary domestic bulls and even fearsome bulls which participate in bullfights because they're of enormous size and have a particularly aggressive disposition. You don't feel safe around buffaloes, even in the car. For example, here a small group of buffaloes stopped a white car on the road and didn't let it pass. As soon as the driver began to move, one of the buffaloes with all its might flew into the car. Apparently, it learned it from the rhinos. And again, we have a situation on the road. A group of buffaloes encountered people on safari and were not happy about it. One of the giants blocked the road and then started ramming the SUV. It pushed it with all its might, as if to tell the people that they were not welcome here and that they should leave as soon as possible. Although buffaloes are herbivorous animals, they are, as you can see, extremely dangerous. And there are even more dangerous herbivores, the hippo. This huge beast is also territorial and does not like intruders. It runs at speeds up to 19 miles per hour, so even in a car you can't always escape from it. However, sometimes this happens. But usually if the car is near the hippo, it has time to damage it, as for example in this case. The driver should have put his foot to the floor and rushed past the hippo, but he stopped and became an easy target. The giant ran at him and did a head-on collision. The hippo's head weighs up to 2,000 pounds, so it's not surprising that the dent was like after a collision with a real car. And this hippo does two things at once: tries to get free from the lionesses and spoils the SUV. In this case, the hippo's teeth are in action. This beast has very long and sharp teeth, as well as a wide mouth, so it was able to damage the hood. By the way, maybe those lionesses were friends of the hippos and they persuaded it to calm down. What do you think? Okay, actually they were hunting it, and apparently they eventually got the upper hand. The hippo shouldn't have wasted its strength on the SUV. But these giants attack not only cars, but also boats. Don't forget that they also feel great in the water. In rivers and lakes, they reach speeds up to 8 miles per hour, so they can kick the bottom of the boat and turn it upside down. So on African rivers, it's worth to travel on reliable and heavy boats. Ordinary fishing boats are no match for an enraged hippo. It may seem that hippos, rhinos, and buffaloes love to crash cars more than others, but practice shows that elephants have no equal in this respect. Thanks to their colossal size, elephants can wreck any car in no time at all. Here, for example, an elephant had eyes on a gray car. It rammed it, breaking the left mirror, kicked the wheel, and then sat down on the hood. Finally, the giant got up on the car and smashed the windshield. Only a few actions, but how much damage? At least it didn't trample on the driver. Here's a similar case, but the elephant only handles the left side of the car, pushing it with its body. After that, it rested on the trunk, broke the windows, and only then left the driver alone. The next situation is somewhat similar to the one in which the hippo did the head-on collision on the African road. First, the elephant wouldn't give a pass and then ran to the car and hit the hood with its tusks. The elephant then pushed the car for a few more seconds before walking away. How you like this kind of damage? A similar thing happened on this safari. An enraged elephant attacked the car and damaged it. Fortunately, it didn't finish the job and the driver was able to escape. And this elephant took it out on cars for all its congeners. At one of India's festivals, this elephant went on a rampage and started smashing everything around it. First, it took on motorcycles and scooters, and then it moved on to the car. The elephant did a pretty good job on the car, destroying it to the ground and completely crushing it in 1 minute. This video clearly shows how strong elephants are. Not only do they smash cars, but even houses. For example, in India in 2016, an angry giant destroyed more than 100 houses. With a slight movement of the trunk, the giant demolished brick and wooden structures like houses of cards. In the end, almost the entire village had to be rebuilt, all because of one ferocious giant. Finally, elephants even attack trains or chase them. In this case, the train drivers have to make adjustments to the schedule because no one wants to run over elephants. Such are these giants. And someone still thinks that elephants are safe and harmless animals. Elephant seal. Elephant seals are not very fond of cars either. In fact, they're seals, and the only thing they have in common with regular elephants is the name. They owe it to the trunk-like nose of the males. However, they're similar to elephants in size. Elephant seals are also very large, so they can even deal with a big car. This is just such footage. An elephant seal hits someone's pickup truck, funny, and a few minutes later takes on a car. It looks fun rather than intimidating. Just imagine going out to the parking lot after a hard day, walking to your car, and seeing it be hit by an elephant seal. What would your reaction be? Write in the comments. And the finale for today is the American bison, another hoofed giant. These are similar in size to African buffaloes and behave in a similar way. For example, here the bison did not like the Mazda, so before letting it pass, one of the giants bumped it. All in all, nothing scary or dangerous. It's much more dangerous when there's a whole herd of bison on the road. There were so many of them that they couldn't squeeze between their own congeners. Some had to run into cars, including the car of the author of the video. The result was a broken windshield. In general, this is not uncommon in American national parks. Later on, impressive moments with giant animals wait for you. Hung moose on the road, alpha gorilla, jellyfish size of a man, and even kraken. I think everyone knows that moose are very large and powerful creatures, but not everyone realizes just how much they are. Look at this giant. This is the strongest moose I've ever seen, a real bag of muscles. You wouldn't want to come face to face with it. It's a good thing it was just standing there because in northern cities it's not uncommon to see a moose on the street, as happened in this case. This is Anchorage, Alaska, by the way, and such an encounter is normal for the locals. And here comes another big creature. And this video is getting a little tense. It's not very pleasant when such a huge moose comes up close, but the giant was in a good mood, so there was no incident. And here's what's happening on the other side of Earth. Somewhere in the African jungle, a group of tourists came across gorillas led by an alpha. The giant gorilla inspires fear and respect. The tourists immediately sit down and press themselves against the trees, but not only because they're afraid, everyone, even the most fearless people in the world, should do so when they see an alpha. Alpha males and other gorillas don't like it when someone's taller and bigger than them. They may consider it as a challenge, an attack, and gorilla power is a very dangerous thing. We're still in Africa. Apart from gorillas, there are many other big creatures to be found here, and the main one is of course the elephant. Look at the elephant the cameraman's captured. It's definitely one of the biggest elephants of all time. It's so huge, and its tusks are so long that it looks more like a mammoth than a modern African bush elephant. For clarity, take a look at how much bigger an elephant is than a man. The man looks tiny in comparison with it. And not only him, look at how the giant eats watermelon. This fruit, which always seems big for us, is literally seeds for the elephant. By the way, here you can also see how the elephant eats. As you can see, it actively uses its trunk, an amazing part of its body, which has 100 times more muscles than the entire human body. You've heard of the giant anteater, haven't you? Well, you should know it's rightfully called the giant one. This is what it looks like up close. Its length often exceeds the height of a human, because giant anteaters can grow up to 7.2 feet in length, and they weigh a lot too, up to 88 pounds. Although the giant anteater has no teeth, it's still potentially very dangerous for humans, and not only. It has very long and sharp claws. With one swipe of its front leg, the giant anteater can easily kill a human, or even a jaguar. Look how big and graceful the swan is. It looks big even like that. But wait, it hasn't opened its wings yet. How you like it now? It feels like the bird has doubled in size. Swan got into an argument with the dog. Either it just didn't like the four-legged one, or the pet had done something to it. But in any case, the huge swan showed that it wasn't to be messed with. It's a spider, isn't it? It's one of the biggest spiders I've ever seen, although I jumped to conclusions. Now this is a really big spider. The one on the left now seems like some harmless little bug. It's just unbelievable that there are spiders in the world so gigantic that they can barely fit in a large plate. By the way, this is the Goliath tarantula, the largest and heaviest spider on the entire planet. This monster can grow up to 12 inches in length, including legs. Fortunately, this spider is not lethal to humans, but its bite is unpleasant. It can cause pain and cramps that can last for days. In addition, the spider's abdomen is covered with hairs that cause irritation if they come into contact with the skin, and even more so with mucous membranes. The frightened Goliath tarantula shakes them off on the enemy with its legs. It feels like contact with nettles. Of course, I knew that bulls are large animals, and I've seen a lot of very different bulls, but this is the first time I see this. Just look at this junk. It's literally made of muscles. All parts of its body look very hefty, even its eyes. They're kind of bottomless black, which makes it seem like some kind of alien. But in fact, it's quite earthly breed called the Brahmin, which is one of the most popular breeds of beef cattle. And here's another famous domestic animal, and it's kind of wrong or something. This horse is too big and disproportionate. Maybe this giant's a rare breed. Actually, it's much simpler than that. This horse is pregnant. Now you know what pregnant horses look like. Pregnancy lasts 11 to 12 months, and the creature you see is about to give birth. This is the latest stage of pregnancy, at which the animals literally swell and bloat. You bet. After all, a foal is born with a weight of 88 to 110 pounds. Many of you have fed pigeons or squirrels at least once in your life, but in some parts of America, they like it brutal. People there feed giant alligators. This girl named Mackenzie went right into the alligator's property and brought him some treats. She does a death-defying trick, because alligators, though, are less dangerous than crocodiles, but their power is more than enough to kill a human. But in this case, no harm done. By the way, this is Big Tex, a record-breaking alligator with a length of more than 13 feet. The locals say he's very kind and sweet and doesn't hurt anyone. But as you know, wild animals can go crazy and go into killer mode at any moment. This big creature is hardly as nice and friendly as Big Tex. It's a saltwater crocodile, the largest crocodile on the planet. It's also extremely unpredictable. The people in the boat were just calm and cautiously traveling along the river, not disturbing it. The crocodile didn't seem aggressive either, but suddenly it darted out and instantly rushed into the water to try to deal with the people. But everything is fine, it couldn't harm them. This is what happens when you work in the far north. Somewhere in the Arctic, people encountered a polar bear that came to say hello. Even from this angle it looks big, but at some point the bear stands up on its hind legs and almost reaches the cameraman. It's incredible how big these creatures are. Jellyfish come in many forms. They're small creatures, and then there's the barrel jellyfish, also known as the dustbin lid jellyfish. This is exactly the kind of jellyfish that divers have caught on camera in British waters. Just look at how huge this jellyfish is. Even humans look small next to it. To be more precise, these divers were the size of the jellyfish itself. Scientists later found out that the divers had managed to encounter and capture on camera the largest barrel jellyfish in history. Fortunately, nature took pity on us. Despite the fact that the jellyfish is huge and can be more than 5 feet in diameter, it's not lethal to humans. Yes, it can sting and leave sores on the skin, but no more. By the way, barrel jellyfish are the leatherback sea turtle's favorite food. And here it is. It looks incredible. It's hard to believe that this is real footage and not an editing. But I assure you, this giant is more than real. The leatherback sea turtle is the largest turtle in the world, and what you just saw wasn't even a record-breaking size. The record holder's even bigger, weighing almost a ton and being more than 8.2 feet long. Leatherback sea turtles are big, but not as big as rays, especially like the giant manta ray that the diver filmed. The huge creature was hovering in the water, flapping its giant fins like wings. It looks majestic. By the way, giant manta rays are the largest rays on the planet. Some individuals can reach almost 30 feet in width and weigh up to 3 tons. In ancient times, sailors and fishermen were very frightened of these giants, believing that they could sink them and even their boats. But there was nothing to be afraid of. In fact, giant manta rays are harmless creatures that pose no danger to humans. They're not interested in us. The giants are much more interested in swimming majestically through the sea and searching for plankton, which they feed on. However, these creatures are very dangerous. In the waters of Australia, fishermen came across a very large great white shark that was circling around their boat. This couldn't help but frighten the fishermen. The giant shark would hardly harm the fishermen, but it could damage their boat. The author of the video was afraid that the shark would bite the motor off and that they would be left helpless far from the shore. Seconds lasted for people like an eternity, but fortunately everything was fine and soon the shark swam away. Seeing a shark near a boat is quite common in the areas where they're found. It's not uncommon for these fish to rise to the surface. But this giant was an unexpected guest. In the waters of Japan, people filmed a giant squid, the real kraken of our planet. These huge cephalopods usually live at very great depths from 1,000 to 3,000 feet. They very rarely rise to the surface, so this case was unique and unusual. People were boating on the sea, enjoying the beautiful views and weather and just having a good time, when suddenly a huge blue whale appeared out of nowhere. It literally cut the people off, appearing right in front of their boat. They almost ran it over. Apparently, the giant greeted them in this way. But it would have been better if it had done it this way, not so unexpectedly and more calmly, like this huge humpback whale. The animal said hello to the sailors, demonstrated its impressive size, and left everyone delighted. From giants, let's move on to other big creatures. Now I'll tell you about the biggest and most dangerous turtle in the world and more. Leatherback sea turtle. Looking at pictures and videos of the leatherback sea turtle, where it's alone in the frame, you might think that it's just a rather large reptile and nothing more. But if you look at the footage, which also shows people, it becomes clear how huge it is. These are the largest modern turtles, and their size is staggering. Leatherback sea turtles can reach 8.2 feet in length and weigh up to 1,320 pounds. But this is far from the limit. The largest measured individual had a total body length of 8.5 feet, a front flipper span of 8.2 feet, and a weight of 2,019 pounds. Almost a ton for one turtle. This is something incredible. In order to keep fit and stay in shape, the turtle has to eat a lot. It eats jellyfish, ctenophores, crustaceans, mollusks, and young fish. By the way, it's not only the enormous appetite and the gigantic size that distinguish the leatherback sea turtle from other turtles, but also its body structure. In the leatherback turtle family, the shell is not connected to the skeleton and consists of some bony plates connected to each other, hence the name of the reptile, which, by the way, can be found in all tropical seas. Archelon. However, you can hardly find this turtle in the water anymore, but you can come across it in some museums. You got it right, Archelon is an extinct turtle. Archelon would beat the pants off even the leatherback sea turtle because this is the largest sea turtle of all time. It was up to 15 feet long and weighed more than 4,850 pounds. And the flipper span was 16.5 feet. By the way, scientists believe that Archelon is a very old ancestor of leatherback sea turtles. These huge creatures lived along with dinosaurs. They appeared on the planet about 100 million years ago and disappeared along with the notorious lizards 66 million years ago. The diet of Archelon resembles that of modern leatherback sea turtles, jellyfish, crustaceans, mollusks, and so on. I wonder how long these creatures lived. How about 100 years? Or 150? So that's hefty, but I don't think Archelon turtles have lived longer than Jonathan. This is one of the largest modern tortoises, but more importantly, the oldest tortoise on the planet. It's hard to believe, but Jonathan was born in 1832. That means this old guy's almost 200 years old. He belongs to the Aldabra giant tortoise species, which is widespread on the island of Aldabra in the Seychelles. Jonathan himself does not live in his native Seychelles. He was moved to St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean, where he's now looked after by the island government itself. The old man's feeling well and doesn't seem to be going to die at all. It's amazing how many things happen in his lifetime, from the advent of movies, airplanes, telephones, and the internet, to a bunch of different social and political events. Speaking of politics, Jonathan has outlived 28 governors on St. Helena. Probably he'll outlive at least a couple more. I think that's enough about turtles for today. But besides them, there are a bunch of other huge creatures that prefer water. Keep watching to see the biggest shark. A jellyfish bigger than a human, a 164-foot organism, and a frog that won't fit in the palm of your hand. Shark. Few people would want to encounter a shark underwater. After all, most of them are extremely dangerous. But if you encounter a whale shark, you don't have to worry. It's probably the kindest shark in the world, and also the biggest one. The whale shark is not nicknamed by chance because its size matches the whales themselves. It can grow up to 66 feet in length and weighs about 20 tons. But of course, there are larger individuals. The whale shark does not hunt large marine life, and especially people. Its diet is similar to that of whales. This giant slowly swims at a speed of 3 miles per hour and eats plankton and small crustaceans, sucking them together with seawater. The whale shark is a real do-gooder. It's always happy to swim with divers and allows them to take pictures and film itself as much as divers want. Interestingly, for all its kindness, the shark has so many teeth that even the great white shark would be horrified. In the mouth of the giant, there are about 300,000 teeth. But they're very small, no more than 0.1 inches long each. And they're designed not to bite, but to not let the food out. Jellyfish. Many jellyfish are very dangerous. Take, for example, the box jellyfish, which can kill several dozen people in a matter of minutes. But this giant is not dangerous to humans. All the better because we can get some amazing close-up footage. This is the lion's mane jellyfish, the largest jellyfish in the world. In the ocean, you can find individuals which bell reaches 6.5 feet in diameter. These record-breaking giants have tentacles capable of stretching out over several tens of meters. The largest measured jellyfish tentacle reached a length of 120 feet, and a diameter of the bell was 7.5 feet. Tentacles as long as a 10-story building. I can't believe it's possible. But this, by the way, is not the limit. There's a creature in the world with even longer tentacles, but we'll talk about it later. Frog. The average frog is not big at all. Walking somewhere near a river or marsh, you might not even notice it unless it starts singing. But it's impossible not to notice the Goliath frog. It's a real Goliath. It's almost unreal to put such an amphibian on your hand, unless, of course, you're not giant. After all, the Goliath frog can reach almost 3.2 feet in length, about 10 inches wide, and weigh up to 13 pounds. That's about the size of a domestic cat if it were flattened. The largest frogs in the world live in Africa, in southwest Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. There, they can be found in the waterfalls of vast and full-flowing tropical rivers. This, by the way, is a very important point. Unlike most of its dirty congeners, the Goliath frog is quite squeamish. It likes to live in crystal-clear water full of oxygen. Like many other frogs, Goliaths are fearful. They notice everything that moves around at a distance of about 130 feet. And if they feel threatened, they jump 10 feet into the water in one jump. Unfortunately, the species is on the verge of extinction. Locals hunt these giants with poisons, nets, and traps, wanting to profit from the amazing amphibian record breakers. Saltwater crocodile. All crocodiles love water, but the saltwater crocodile doesn't mind swimming in seawater. This is not only the largest of all crocodiles, but also the largest reptile in the world, as well as the largest land predator on the planet. These monsters easily grow more than 16 feet in length and weigh about a ton, although some can be over 20 feet long and weigh about 2 tons. In addition to their gigantic size, these crocodiles can boast excellent vision, incredible speed in the water, which exceeds 12 miles per hour, and furious strength. With its tail, the crocodile can knock down any animal, and with its bite, considered to be the most powerful in the world, it easily breaks bones as if they were chips. In addition, the saltwater crocodile has a very strong immunity and recovers quickly even after serious wounds. To me, it looks like a kind of final boss in some video game. Saltwater crocodile is one of the most dangerous animals, not only now but in history in general. An encounter with it in its territory will almost certainly result in death. Siphonophores. Let's return directly to the sea. I think everyone knows that the largest animal in the world is the blue whale. It's very heavy and very long. It can be 108 feet long. It would seem unreal to beat such a result, but it's not so. I've already shown you the lion's mane jellyfish with its 120-foot tentacles, and I promise to show you something much cooler. This is the siphonophore. In fact, it's not only a single creature, but an entire colony combined into a single whole. The parts of a siphonophore are called zooids. Together, they can reach an incredible length. Some siphonophores can stretch 148 to 164 feet. Siphonophores are very resilient creatures. Even if you cut off half of the zooids, the colony will continue to live. Just one zooid is enough for the siphonophore to exist. I must say, these creatures are not harmless. There are real monsters among them, and the most famous of them is the Portuguese man-o'-war. This creature is not affectionate at all. In fact, it's something like an extremely dangerous jellyfish, which tentacles reach a monstrous size. The Portuguese man-o'-war's tentacles carry a huge number of stinging cells, the venom of which is dangerous to humans. Contact with the large surface of the tentacles can be fatal. And most eerie of all, the Portuguese man-o'-war can finish off its prey while being dozens of meters away from it. So we've met the giant and incredibly large representatives of the animal world. And what giants inhabited our planet in ancient times? You'll see it further in the episode. Carbonemys. We'll start with a creature that in its time clearly had ambitions to become the top, the most fearsome and dangerous predator on the planet. Some of you now imagine a giant dinosaur. Others have taken a slightly different path and imagined a dangerous bird. But who would have thought Carbonemys would be a turtle? Of course, it was different from the turtles that live on the Earth today. It had a shell which was about 6.5 feet in diameter, weighed about 660 pounds, and was extremely strong. The main feature and strength of the turtle is its beak, capable of biting even the thick bones of enemies in half. Nevertheless, no matter how high ambitions it had, it couldn't run like some tiger and grab everyone left and right, of course. The turtle opted for an ambush type of hunting, hiding in the bushes waiting for its prey. And as soon as it was within reach, Carbonemys made a sharp jerk followed by just one bite. And that was it. The prey was done. Almost anyone could fall into its trap, by the way. Mammals, fish, and even crocodiles couldn't resist the enormous power of the turtle. Only Titanoboa, the largest snake in the history of the planet, was not afraid of these armored killers. Truth be told, however, Carbonemys was not much afraid of the snake either. No matter how you look at it, it was extremely difficult even for Titanoboa to penetrate its shell. Well, you can write in the comments which one of them was in a better position, in your opinion. Diatrema. Our next prehistoric guest was a bird. Only not an ordinary bird, but a ground-dwelling, flightless one. If in the past such giants were the norm, then today just one such bird could stir the pot. The fact is that its beak alone was over 18 inches long. It itself was 6.5 feet tall, and it also boasted a powerful body. However, at the same time, the body was quite short. I'm talking about underdeveloped wings. However, as is usually the case, if nature limits you somewhere, it makes up for it with something else. That's exactly the scenario that happened to our feathered friend. It was born with very strong legs, each with 4 toes. This beautiful bird weighed about 220 pounds, and its long beak had many small but razor-sharp teeth. So, as I've already said, due to the problems with its wings, Diatrema couldn't fly. Leading an exclusively terrestrial lifestyle, it was quite a ferocious raptor, and if necessary, for example, during a chase it could develop a high speed. Scientists believe that it was comparable to the speed of an ostrich, that is about 37 to 43 miles per hour in case of danger. Despite its predatory temperament and nature, Diatrema could feed not only on small prehistoric animals, but also on plant food. It's safe to say that with its powerful beak, it could crack any nut, fruit, or root. What's more, researchers believe that the power of the 18-inch beak of this bird is akin to that of a guillotine. Everything else it came across was instantly crumbled and broken. It's even frightening to imagine what happened to the animals that fell into the trap of this overgrown bird. Their fate was probably sealed in a single blow to the head. It would be strange if the main danger among birds was posed only by terrestrial creatures. So this time I'm going to tell you about a flying feathered individual called Argentavis. And it's not just some faintly flying feathered creature. This majestic creature is considered to be one of the largest birds in history. This bird lived in what is now Argentina, as evidenced by its name, which is translated as the majestic Argentine bird. As for its size, its height was more than 47 inches, its wingspan was about 23 feet, and its weight exceeded 150 pounds. But this is not all that can be said about this bird. Its method of hunting is also definitely worth mentioning. Argentavis would soar high in the sky and stalk its potential prey. When it spotted a target, it would literally crash down on it from the sky and turn the prey into a flapjack. Just imagine how other creatures felt when a 150-pound giant fell on them from a height of dozens of meters. Well, if the prey for some reason still showed signs of life, this raptor dealt with it skillfully and quickly. It dealt with the prey with surgical precision with its sharp beak. Nevertheless, it's impossible not to note the disadvantages of this hunter. It did have them. For example, because of its large size, it wasn't easy for Argentavis to take off, and it always needed a suitable terrain, some tree or a slope. Also, he could not boast of phenomenal speed. It accelerated to more than the usual 37 to 43 miles per hour for flying birds. T-Rex. Tyrannosaurus means tyrant and lizard in Greek. These creatures inhabited the territories of what is now Canada and the United States, and were the only ones in their species belonging to the reptile hipped clade. Today, the only way to analyze the real force and power of the extinct creatures is to examine and study their remains. And here, by the way, is one of the T-Rex skeletons. The largest skeleton, to be exact. It was found near the Canadian Saskatchewan province and allowed scientists to conclude that Tyrannosaurus weighed more than 8 tons and was about 43 feet long. These figures are constantly changing to this day, but what remains constant is the information about the jaws of T-Rex. One of the teeth of this creature, which people managed to find, exceeded 12 inches in length. This, by the way, is the largest of all found teeth of carnivorous dinosaurs. Scientists believe that T-Rex had dozens of them in its mouth. The most heated debate about this creature has always been, and remains, a dispute about hunting. Some scientists believe that Tyrannosaurus was an active top predator which hunted other large dinosaurs, such as ceratopsians and sauropods. Others, in turn, argue that it fed mainly on carrion. But now most paleontologists believe that Tyrannosaurus could both hunt and feed on dead creatures. In any case, it seems to me that the latter version is the most plausible. This anomalous giant didn't care who or how to devour, especially when you consider the strength of the Tyrannosaurus's grip. Scientists say the bite of this creature would have been enough to bite through a car. You're looking at these ancient monsters right now and thinking, it's a good thing there's no one as big and dangerous these days. But as much as I hate to break it to you, I have to tell you that dangerous doesn't mean big. I'll now show you a real tyrant of our time that is not to be messed with. Inland taipan. The cold stare of this monster gives chills even in hot deserts, and one bite will kill 100 people at once. And no, this is not a figure of speech, but a gruesome fact. Like most dangerous creatures, this animal has made its home in Australia. No matter how the locals get used to these anomalous creatures, the inland taipan stands out among them. First of all, the animal is quite large. Yes, it's not a huge python or boa constrictor, but calling a 6.5 to 8 foot snake small is wrong. And its camouflage coloring, which perfectly blends with the desert, makes it a perfect hunter at all. Although no, another factor makes an ideal hunter of it. Its venom. It's the most dangerous venom in the world. If you can't imagine how much damage the toxin can do, just listen. One dose of it would be enough to kill 250,000 mice. If the example of babies with tails is still not clear to you, then the same dose would be enough for about 100 healthy humans. The heart of hypothetical test subjects will stop beating forever in just 30 minutes after encountering this animal. Fortunately, this creature doesn't pounce on each person in sight and is content to eat mice, rats, jerboas, and other small creatures in its native desert. I don't know about you, but to me, this is a real dangerous snake. It's 100 times more dangerous than Titanoboa because it's so hard to find. Besides, there's not much difference whether the prey will be eaten because of the predator's large size or because of the predator's incredible venom. The one I feel not indifferent about is the cat in the following video. After watching it several times, I can't believe how lucky this cute creature is. Did you see that? One more second and the furball could have said goodbye to its life. Still, it's okay. However, the owner and author of the video will take action and close the hole in the fence. The battle of two snakes. If the situation in the last video is in some sense unequal, this story is a little different. Somewhere in the wild, the author of the following video filmed a battle between two snakes. There was a California mountain king snake in the left corner of the ring and a rattlesnake in the right corner of the ring. To be honest, I was expecting a much longer and more intense battle, but apparently the king snake has somewhere to be in a hurry. It crawled up to its opponent and suddenly attacked it. It injected a dose of toxin and performed its trademark choking hold, which was impossible to resist. You can see what happened next. It gradually swallowed the rattlesnake. The whole process took no more than a few minutes. That's all, guys. Which creature did you find most frightening? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.